Xbox plan for, I want to talk about the Game Pass and growth.
Another Xbox video, because the situation over there just keeps getting crazier. So yes, this week we all obviously talked about the shutdown of Tango and Arcane Austin, the developers of Hi-Fi Rush and Redfall, respectively.
Yep.
The decision to
4 years
shut
ago?
down
Yeah, it is.
studios, especially that made Hi-Fi Rush, seems insane, but sort of reflects many larger problems with Xbox, of which there was a lot of reporting yesterday about various new things related to this.
hmm
There's currently a debate about whether or not to put Call of Duty on Game Pass. There's talk about what's going to happen with Hellblade 2, if that could be successful, quote unquote, but not good enough for Microsoft. They might put.
I don't think Hellblade 2, the Senua's Saga, is going to make money. There's no way it's going to make money. Like, think about Alan Wake had like 5 times more hype behind it, and even Alan Wake hasn't turned a profit yet. So if Alan Wake couldn't turn a profit, there's no way Senua's Saga is going to turn a profit. No, it was a mistake. Like, it's a financial mistake. It might be a great game. It might be really fun, but I'm just not seeing anybody making money off of it, right? No one cares? Yeah. No one cares. That's basically it.
That on PlayStation to sell copies because it'll be on Game Pass.
They marketed the game with a screenshot? There's no way. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that.
And all of these issues sort of come back to the same thing. And that is a lot of questions about Microsoft's Game Pass model, how games are allowed to perform there, and what it takes to be considered a success there. My problem with this is that we simply have no real frame of reference in terms of what Microsoft considers a success on Game Pass and what their plan is for the future. The Call of Duty question feels like
I don't think they really need to understand it. Like, I feel like Microsoft probably understands. Like, you think about it, this is a $3 trillion company. I mean, Microsoft has been foundational for software for like 40 years, 30 years. I'm sorry to say, but I think they know what the fuck they're doing. Like, let's be honest. The devs should get to know. Yeah, I bet they probably do.
real kind of linchpin moment for this entire concept where
Yeah.
you've said the whole time all your exclusive games are going to be day one Game Pass, so that should in theory include Call of Duty.
It would.
But in doing that, you give up billions of dollars in revenue over the long term for forgoing those sales on a platform where Call of Duty is extremely popular. So you're kind of screwed either way. But I'm leaning toward the fact that I think they're going to triple down on Game Pass and put it there
I think they
as
should.
one last lure to get people to sign up. What I don't understand is
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a better investment to get people into the Game Pass ecosystem than have them buy one game. Because there's always going to be the people that are going to buy the game anyway. Like, they're going to go and just go to the store, oh, it's a new Call of Duty, I'm going to buy the game.
what the plan is for longer term subscriber growth of Game Pass. Because we know it has slowed just absolutely exponentially compared to the big surges that we saw during the pandemic.
I don't think that you can expect to have the Game Pass continuously grow forever. Like, at a certain point, you're going to reach market saturation, where everybody that's going to buy Game Pass has already bought Game Pass or has chosen not to. Like, you can't... nothing can just keep getting bigger infinitely.
Everyone was home, everyone was
let's be
gaming
honest.
more. The value of Game Pass kept going up and up and up with all the stuff
Yeah.
added. But at a certain point, you've just reached saturation.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there are really very few wells left to, dig into for more subscribers. And I don't think Microsoft has come out with a coherent argument, for Game Pass continue to expand at this point and why they should continue to just solely rely on Game Pass as sort of the future and put all their exclusives on there day one, and like why that is a good way to support the ecosystem.
I think that it's a really good way to do it because I think that what Xbox is planning on doing in the future is integrating Game Pass into a cloud gaming business model. And I think that that's why they talk a lot about South American audiences and audiences that are in developing countries because they can't access a lot of the games because of the PC requirements. So creating Game Pass creates a foundation of a customer base to like proactively capture the market whenever they're ready to actually distribute that like to the public. Because like you remember, like that's what I think what's her name, Sarah Bond, the president of Xbox said. I think that's what their real plan is, because that's the only thing that makes sense. And I think also like if you think about like how fast can data be transmitted theoretically, it can be transmitted so much faster than what the average human reaction speed is, that I think that cloud gaming is it's an inevitability. Now, we might not have the technology for it right now, but it is an inevitable it's an inevitable reality, and it will happen sooner probably than later. Latency hasn't improved though. It will. It will eventually improve. Like really, like it's crazy how people like, are we really going to assume that it's never going to change? Like when has that ever been true for tech? Never. It hasn't been true for anything. Only hardware bottlenecks are holding cloud gaming back, but it's improving fast. It is. And I think what's going to end up happening is that's why Microsoft is banking on this.
Again, I'm not arguing this is bad for players. Like, this is not, it's quote, player friendly, but obviously I think it is causing larger damage with the platform as a whole. And if your platform is damaged beyond repair, guess what? You don't really get to experience as many good games, or you see talented studios shut down like we're seeing already in layoffs. The Game Pass ecosystem is heavily limited by Xbox console sales. That is very clear at this point, because what is there beyond Xbox console sales? There is PC, where games launch day and date on PC, and then in Game Pass Ultimate, you can get the...
Well, there's also Windows and people that are using Windows. Like, for example, you know how, like, Kick doesn't really make a lot of money, but Kick makes money through people that are using Stake? This is the same thing. Is that this brings more people and keeps them inside of the Windows ecosystem. And it keeps Microsoft, like, if I were to assume, I bet like 95% of people use a Windows operating system. And every single different tool that Microsoft has that keeps people in that ecosystem prevents Mac OS, it prevents Linux, it prevents these other competing operating systems from even having a foothold at all. It's a loss leader, yeah. Because you think about it, like how many people use Windows versus how many people are using Xbox? It's like a fraction.
These day one Xbox games on PC. Even still, if you are a dedicated PC gamer, you are probably gaming most of the time on Steam. That may or may not be enough for you to subscribe. Like, if you're a primarily PC gamer, are you going to be convinced necessarily to subscribe to Xbox Game Pass for Game Pass releases on PC? Maybe.
If you could get Game Pass on Steam, like I'm subscribed to Game Pass because I'm a streamer and it doesn't matter, right? But if I was like a private individual, right, I was just a gamer, I would 100% subscribe to Game Pass if I could get it through Steam. If I could access Game Pass's library and Game Pass's like tools and games through Steam, that would be amazing.
But
it'd be crazy good.
You know, I think there's a relatively small pool of harder core PC gamers that are also
Game Pass as like a Steam app, basically, yeah.
For Xbox Game Pass, and I do not think that is a segment that is growing.
And I think also like a lot of gamers, there's like a general fatigue, like launcher fatigue. Not everybody wants to have like 7 different launchers for things. That's the way that I feel about it. I don't want to have 10 different launchers to play a video game.
Another segment that Microsoft is really, really, nuts to go after is this idea that people who do not own consoles will want to subscribe to Xbox Game Pass so they can play through other devices through cloud streaming. This is, playing on your tablet, playing on your smart TV, like all these other places you can play Xbox games without needing a console. The problem is cloud gaming is a really, really niche market, and it is really slowly expanding over time. It is a tiny.
I don't think that's really the reason why they're doing it. I think the reason why they're doing it is because there are a lot of games that are made to play on a tablet, and also there's PC games. Like, how many of you guys are PC gamers and you have Game Pass? Like, in the chat. Like, you don't own an Xbox, but you just have a PC. Yeah. There's plenty of people that have it. It makes sense, right? Because it's a, fuck no, I'm not retarded. Yeah, there you go. But there are some people that are, and then they have it. Too many services, so not me. Yeah, I get it. All right, too many subscriptions. True, very true. But a lot of people do have Game Pass, and there's a good reason for that. It's the best deal in gaming. Yeah, I would say it's probably one of the best deals for sure. I don't think that being able to play the games on the other devices is really... I don't think it's connected directly to cloud gaming yet, because there's a lot of games on Game Pass that you can play on a tablet with no problem. There's a lot of games you can play on a PC, obviously, with no problem, or even a phone.
Part of the market, as Microsoft itself said in its court cases where there were concerns about having a cloud streaming monopoly, but they're like, it's barely a part of the business. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But like, that is something that they believe is going to be part of the future. But I have not seen the tech, evolve to a point where that feels necessary. But even conceptually, I don't.
So I can talk from like my experience. So we use a program. It's called Parsec. And Parsec is basically a remote gameplay device where like I'm playing a video game off of another computer. It's effectively cloud gaming. And I tried it out a number of times. Actually, you know what? Every single episode of Pixel Pitch that I do, every video game I play through Parsec. I actually don't have any of those games installed onto my PC personally. It's all through Parsec and through another PC. And I'm able to play those games and do them remotely with almost no issue at all. And this is, by the way, it's a Pecky's W, right? The production for OTK is fucking insane. They figured all of this shit out for me. So yeah, everything that you guys see me play and do on the screen, there is input lag, right? But it's like so minimal that it's almost not even existent. It is insane. It's not useful for games though, but I'm talking about playing games. I'm talking about me playing video games. Like that's what I mean. Parsec is very good. Microsoft is looking forward to this. They know the tech limitations are temporary, but they're setting up the infrastructure as well as molding the masses to accept it and have it in place. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's what they're doing.
Like, this makes a lot of sense because like the games you have on Xbox Game Pass, granted it's a wide range of games, but you're asking people to pay, what is it, 100, 140, 160, I don't even know what it is now. It's a lot for access to all of these games, the vast majority of which are like really traditional.
Well, this is a yearly thing, right? How much is Game Pass a month? Because I bet a lot of people probably just subscribe to Game Pass for like 2 months or 3 months. Like, that's probably what they do.
Core video games.
And the reason why I say that is because there's even a term for it in terms of like subscriptions, like what do you call it? Like Hulu, Peacock, Netflix, etc. Like, there's even a term for people that are doing that. That's how common it is. So to assume that people don't do that with a gaming subscription service, I feel like you can't really argue that.
Really into traditional core video games,
Churn?
probably own an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC already. I don't think there is this giant untapped market of gamers that would be, really into these games. Would they just not have to spend $300, $400, $500 on a console?
There are actually, but the audiences aren't in America. South America, because like now obviously that I do game publishing, I know a little bit more about this. There is such a tremendous, massive market in developing countries, and particularly South America. And also India is another really big place. And obviously Asia, China, Africa exists. Africa, like I don't even know if Africa is there yet, but I know that India and a lot of places in South America and even some places in China, there is a massive, tremendous market. And person for person, it outnumbers the US market by like 2 or 3 to 1. In terms of like how much these people play games and how much money they probably would spend if they could. Yeah, Brazil plays a lot. Exactly.
Instead, I think at best, you are going to end up with people that don't buy an Xbox. And instead of buying an Xbox, they just do Game Pass and cloud gaming, which cuts into your Xbox sales.
Which is fine because Xbox is a loss leader. Almost all consoles are made at a loss. Or like they're not making a huge amount of money on Xbox. Like they're making the money off of getting people into the ecosystem by having them buy the Xbox. Not anymore. Xbox does not lose money anymore. Well, we'll see what happens.
Speaking of Xbox sales, we know that they've stopped reporting these numbers like forever at this point because they were so far behind their competition. It was just sort of embarrassing every time they reported them.
Yeah.
And they
Sony
say they don't care as
out.
much. They just want, gaming revenue. They want Game Pass numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the same as like, well, Sony's like PlayStation Plus is probably I bet Sony, if I were to assume, I bet there are probably 10 times as many Game Pass users than Sony PlayStation Plus users. So like, is Microsoft really losing with gaming whenever they're 10xing like that? Like, no. Let's look it up right now. All right, we're going to look at PS Plus subscribers. So we'll go ahead. We're going to pull this up. And this is how many subscribers does it have? March 2023, it has 47 million subscribers. It's PS Plus Extra? Oh, okay. 6.1. Okay, so this gives you all the data right here. This shows everything. There's 3 tiers. So we'll go ahead and look at Soft Game Pass subscriber numbers. 34 million. So there's 3 tiers, yeah. So if there's 33 million, is this equivalent to the 33 for PlayStation Plus, or is it equivalent to the 8 for PlayStation Plus, or the 6.1? It's 6 plus 8. It's added up. Okay, so it's not like you choose extra or premium. It's not like extra is premium and then more stuff. PS Plus is necessary for online. Yeah, no, I understand that. Premium has extra included. So then logically, it would be 8, right? No, both? Okay, well, either way. No matter how... Okay, so I feel like I don't want to figure this out anymore because I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm getting too many different people giving me different data. Right? So like I can't judge what people are saying and I don't know this myself and I don't trust chat to explain it to me. So either way though, either if it's 6, if it's 8, if it's 6 plus 8, it doesn't matter. It's still way less than Game Pass. So yeah. It's not 10x though, to be fair. What I said originally was 10x, but it's not 10x. But it is substantially more.
But again, like the primary way you expand Game Pass is expanding consoles because that is the primary way most people are going to want to subscribe. And if you're limiting your reach by like, quote, not caring about consoles and you're fine with 30% declines over and over and over again with your hardware because you're making the case that you don't need an Xbox. You can play on PC. You can play on your tablet. You don't even need, you don't even need Game Pass. You can just wait for the port to PlayStation, which just started, but like it is going to start ramping up and up with more and more games. And they've just been selling the idea that you don't need an Xbox, even though I would argue the Xbox is the primary point which these subscriptions are generated. So it feels...
It's very hard for me to say if that's true or not. And I feel like obviously it might be the case now. But I think that as more and more people, like I can't see consoles continuing to be more popular. I think consoles are going to decline in popularity. And I think they already are. Because you're seeing so many other devices that are coming out that are cheaper than consoles or also double as a console. Like, for example, we don't have Game Boys anymore because everybody has a phone. And I think that's where console sales are really losing. Yeah, mobile and handheld is going to completely take over.
Feels like they just have so few cards left to play. I think one of those cards is Call of Duty because Call of Duty is a big enough game, big enough series where if you say, okay, if you subscribe to Game Pass, you are going to get the new Call of Duty every year for free, quote unquote, even though the total cost of Game Pass is obviously more than a yearly Call of Duty game. That could be a draw for some players that may not otherwise be subscribed yet. That could convert.
Well, and this is also a big component is that, like, if you're broke, you know this. excuse me, it's easy to get $15, but it's really hard to get 60. Like, it's easy to just get like a few bucks together every month and it's fine. But then if you need to get like $50, $100, that's really, really hard to do.
For some PlayStation players, but like, again, I don't know how much room for growth this is. It feels like everybody that owns an Xbox that wants Game Pass is probably going to have it at this point, and especially if they keep upping the price, which they are allegedly going to do again, that is not going to encourage even more signups from those that are kind of on the fence about it. And it feels...
Somebody was confused in chat. Somebody says, did you say it's harder to get more money than less money? So basically, it's easier to get $15 4 times when you're broke than to get $60 once. And the reason why, and like you guys know this if you've ever been in a situation like this, is that you always have these like random expenses that come up that break you down to 0. That's usually what happens, is you get reset to 0 more often. So that's why. It's just bad management? Yeah, but guess what people that are bad at management usually are? If you're bad at money management, there's a better chance than average that you're fucking broke. Let's think this out for a minute.
It's weird to rely on Game Pass sustainability and Game Pass growth in a way where there does not feel like there's a clear path forward in terms of how to grow the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And, Microsoft always wanted to be the Netflix of gaming. They thought, okay, Netflix is destroying everyone with its subscription model. Like, we can do that too. Like, it's going to be, we're going to be first in class. And, while Game Pass is, the most successful model of its kind in terms of like a system that offers sort of day one releases of big games, it's different than the streaming space. Like, first of all, a bunch of other rival streaming services to Netflix trying to do the same thing have failed or are failing or are losing tons of money. Because it is very hard to execute this and produce, high quality content that is offset by subscription numbers.
Well,
and
Netflix also has first mover advantage. People have been subscribed to Netflix for over 10 years. All of these new streaming services have come out in the last 5 years, and it's very hard for them to compete with Netflix because everybody already knows what Netflix is. And also, like, the problem is that Netflix has such a massive breadth of content, whereas like Peacock or one of these other like Disney Plus, they don't have as much of a variety of content. They might have a very deep amount of content in 1 or 2 areas. Like, for example, Crunchyroll has a lot of anime, but that's all they have. And Disney Plus has a lot of Disney stuff, but they probably don't have a lot of other stuff. And that's the reason why Netflix pops off so much. It's because it's good for people that are just like more casual watchers. Yeah, Disney's only good for old stuff. Yeah, and that's the big reason, I think. That's why they're unable to compete against Netflix directly.
And payments. And then Netflix themselves, they're having trouble because their market is saturated as well for the most part. So they're trying to pull out their last bag of tricks, like killing password sharing and things like this. I think they're going to not report subscriber numbers going forward too, because Wall Street hates every time their subscriber numbers don't grow or go down a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
But Netflix,
that's what Blizzard did.
Contrary to Microsoft, cranks out, really, really popular and or good shows all the time. Like, every week goes by and there's a couple of new Netflix shows. Like, if they're not, some of them are really good. Many of them are not, but even the not good ones are really widely watched. It's a reason for, people to keep their Netflix subscription because there's always something new. That's not true with Game Pass. The Game Pass idea is like, yes, it has this larger collection of games.
Well, to be fair, like, if Starfield was as popular as Skyrim, I bet it would have added multiple millions of people that were subscribed to Game Pass. That's the big issue, is that there's no big game right now that gets people to go in and, like, purchase Game Pass. Like, for example, HBO Go. What did people buy HBO Go for like 8 years? Game of Thrones. And as soon as Game of Thrones went away, I bet a massive amount of people stopped using it. So you need to have like some form of like basically a blockbuster like hit, whether it's a game or a show or something, to get people to subscribe. Like Disney has The Mandalorian, right? I'm pretty sure that's the one. I haven't seen it myself. Pal World was probably the last big game. Yeah, but Pal World was still a small game compared to something like Starfield, like how big it could have been. So yeah,
Old games are added to it over
you need
time.
to kill
And then
out.
there's
Yeah,
these,
exactly.
these day one releases, but these big day one releases for Game Pass are so few and far between. How many truly huge Game Pass releases are there a year? 2, 3, maybe.
Starfield pretty much was the only big one.
Like
Like
last year
massive
it was
one.
like Starfield.
Yeah.
And it was Hi-Fi Rush, which was a surprise. Those were like the main ones, more or less.
Yeah,
And
he's
then
right about that.
This year it's what? Hellblade 2, and
Nobody
then
cares.
if they maybe do Call of Duty, like again, it's like 2 big releases a year as opposed to Netflix where you can peruse through 3, 4, 5, 6 new shows and movies every week. It's a different system. And like Microsoft cannot pump out games like that. This quote from Matt Booty that they need, smaller games that are big hits, like you're not turning around games in, 14 months.
Well, that's making them try to compete with Steam, and there's no way they can compete with Steam for like game publishing. There's no chance. Like, and I think that if they could do that, like if Xbox Game Pass could actually compete with Steam and have like competitive uploads onto Game Pass all the time, I think that it would be way better. But I don't know what the infrastructure for that would even look like.
Or like a year and a half, like even these,
And
quote,
also,
small-
like the other problem with Game Pass is that Game Pass is designed in a way that's beneficial for the people who make Game Pass, where like there's like advertisements and shit all over it. It's really annoying. Whereas Steam doesn't have that. Steam is completely consumer first.
all games. Hi-Fi Rush took 4 or 5 years. Something that just seems like, oh, this is a fun project by like a couple of dudes, like Power World.
Yeah.
Power World still took 3 years. Like,
Well, a really good example of this is the Animal Well. It's like the recent game that Donkey published. Like that's the kind of game that Game Pass needs to have more of that come out very regularly. So it gives people like that fresh new thing that they can try out that just popped off. And if there's no money that's being spent there, then it's going to be so easy for somebody to just, oh, wow, it's a new game. I'm going to try this new game out. So I think that he's bringing up a really good point that Game Pass does need that revolving door of content to make the experience and the purchase of Game Pass feel fresh.
cannot just crank out huge hits in a short amount of time in order to like keep people being like, oh, there's this on Game Pass, there's this on Game Pass. Like it doesn't, the industry doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And granted, there
Game
are
Pass
problems
doesn't have
not
quality
doing
indies.
this. I've
Yeah,
talked many
exactly.
times about Sony and their giant budgets on their games have to be offset by these big sales, and they're running into issues there. They really need to start relying on live games for ongoing revenue, which they had Helldivers as a huge success despite the recent
Fuck up.
pickup. That's that's still a big success for them. And then you have the place that's performing the best obviously is always Nintendo, who is not doing layoffs,
Yep.
who is expanding things, about to launch new hardware. Nintendo always sort of has it made lately, but there are cross problems between the PlayStation model and the Microsoft model. But
That's because Nintendo's console is the only console that creates innate value. Nintendo's console is portable. There's no difference between a PlayStation and a computer. There's no difference between an Xbox or a computer. Like, it's really not. But for a Nintendo Switch, there absolutely is. And Nintendo Switch is not just a worse version of a computer.
it feels to me like the Game Pass issues are easier to see, and I don't think Microsoft has a coherent or compelling vision in terms of how Game Pass extends into the future and is sustainable. The room for growth does not appear to be there. Even if cloud gaming became like the number one source of gaming in the country, which it is not going to be, I wouldn't say it's going to be in 10 years.
I mean, it's not in the country, no. Like, this is a developed first world country where most people have access to technology. But, like, if you look at the whole world, like, Microsoft is a $1 trillion company, a $3 trillion company, excuse me, because they don't just look at the country. They're looking at the whole world. And I think that's the big reason.
I think it will. You still run into the conceptual problem of trying to convert non-console gamers into cloud gamers playing the same games. And again, I don't think the barrier...
No, you're not you're converting... What you're converting is you're converting mobile gamers. And people that have access to a device, like a tablet or mobile, you're converting mobile gamers to Game Pass subscribers, which is a pretty easy transition.
To entry for gaming is owning a console or not. It's just whether it's like sort of part of your lifestyle, if you have time to play, if it interests you.
Yeah.
The console barrier, if you remove the console barrier, all you're doing is selling less consoles. So again, potentially good for the player, which is
Well, you're
great.
also selling less copies. And if you weren't selling less copies, then Square Enix wouldn't be shifting their model over to making everything non-exclusive. And Sony wouldn't be talking about shifting over to making things non-exclusive as well. Like, I think also, by the way, the big reason why that's happening is because they're worried about getting regulated. But I think the other reason is because it makes more money. And also, like, a lot of these big games that publish on PlayStation publish exclusively on PlayStation because PlayStation pays them a lot of money. And if PlayStation has to pay people a lot of money to publish on their platform exclusively, it implies that if they didn't publish on the platform exclusively, they would make more money publishing on other platforms instead. So it's like, I think that's just the logic to it, right?
But as a strategy for Microsoft, not great. And even if things, seem player forward, if they end up hurting the games, hurting development, hurting the developers, causing layoffs, causing brand trust erosion, it's not good ultimately for everybody. So
I think that it's very hard to say that the way that the studios are run will actually affect gamers. I think that he has a good point, and I think this does, like, whenever it is an extreme example, like the best extreme example I can think of is Blizzard in 2021, whenever Shadowlands basically turned into, like, the entire company went AFK to deal with the sexual harassment lawsuit stuff that happened in California. Like, that definitely is that bad, but I don't think that the average consumer and the average Xbox gamer or Game Pass subscriber really cares about anything other than the value proposition for Game Pass. Like, if you were to interview, I would say 10,000 Game Pass or 1,000 Game Pass subscribers randomly, I think that the majority of them probably would not even know what happened with Starfield. They wouldn't know what happened with, this recent thing with Hi-Fi Rush. Like, I would assume that less than 10%, if I had to guess, of Game Pass subscribers know anything more than a headline about Game Pass dropping the studio for Hi-Fi Rush. The only thing that the average consumer cares about is the direct value proposition of your product in real time to them at that exact moment. That's it.
I don't know what they're doing over there. I don't think they know what they're doing over there. The fact that they're debating whether or not to put Call of Duty on Game Pass.
I don't think that Microsoft is incompetent. I think that if we think they don't know what we're doing, they're thinking about it in a direction that we're not thinking of. Now, I mean, by the way, I'm not like, I think Sony is like, PlayStation is a better value than Xbox. Like, I'm not a Xbox like super fanboy, but I don't think that they're stupid. I don't think Microsoft is stupid.
It's about to be announced in a month, and they paid $70 billion for Activision Blizzard, where Call of Duty is their biggest series by far. Like, it's crazy that they would still like not have a coherent idea of what they're doing there. And this question extends to a number of games, like the smaller games. How is Hellblade going to be considered a success when all we have to go is Game Pass player count or whatever? Like, what is the metric? You would think, okay, maybe it's just acclaim, and then Hi-Fi Rush, super well received, winning awards, all the acclaim you could want, they're dead. Doesn't matter. So what is the metric for success?
Rewards and acclaim don't make money. The game probably didn't make enough money. Who cares about how many game developers jerk each other off talking about how good the game is? How many copies of the game did it sell? How much money did it make?
Success here. We don't.
Which, by the way, I still think that they made a mistake. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I don't know what their balance sheet is. So, like, I don't really know this. But from my perspective, I think they fucked up by getting rid of Hi-Fi Rush Studio. I do. I think they fucked up. It was, which one was that? Tango Gearworks. Yeah.
It sucks. It's stupid.
But I also don't
feel
know
for all
the full
developers
information
who were
that
laid
they
off,
do.
And it appears like more layoffs are probably coming, not just in the industry, but at Xbox specifically.
Everywhere.
And I'd say things are going to get worse.
Here's another component to that. Like, for example, So Duolingo is, let's see, I think it might have been here. I don't remember exactly when it happened. But I believe that whenever they made the announcement for some of the open AI changes, the stock price of this went down substantially. And you're seeing other companies that are getting the pinch because AI is encroaching on what their business model was. And this is happening everywhere. It's not just like gaming. And that's my point, right? This is tech at a whole.
Or they get better, but like I don't know. I
It's
just don't
unavoidable.
understand
It
what
is.
they're doing. I don't think leadership has been good during this whole time period, and I think there needs to be a change. Anyway, thanks for watching. Maybe I'll get to Hades tomorrow. We'll see.
It's a great game.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Take care.
So yeah, I figured I'd watch this video. Paul Tassi writes a lot of articles. I read him a lot, and so he had a video. I figured I'd watch it and just take a look at it, see what he's got to say. I don't think that Xbox is stupid. I don't think they're being mismanaged either. I think that their plan is to capitalize on cloud gaming in probably 5 to 10 years and build an infrastructure around capitalizing on it now, so that whenever it actually comes out, they're using Game Pass probably as a break-even or even a loss leader, so they can massively capitalize and completely own the market in the same way that they do with Windows for PCs right now. I think that's what their real plan is, and in my opinion, if that is what their plan is, I think it's a really good fucking plan. That's what I think. Square Enix had a ton of layoffs today too. Really? Nobody's talking about how Tango fucked up whenever they opted for a new IP instead of making their biggest sequel, Evil Within 3, which Phil wanted. Yeah, exactly. Microsoft been saying for years they want to expand Xbox into the Asian market. Then they go and shut down their only studio in Asia. Well, they just might not like that studio, right? I mean, they can just get another studio. It's not a big deal. Paul gave Starfield a 9.5. Hey, like, I don't know. Maybe he was playing another game, right? Maybe he thought he was playing No Man's Sky. They want first mover advantage on a subscribe to play platform based on mobile first. Exactly. This is like this guy in chat. Like, this is 100% where I think he's at. They want first mover advantage on a subscribe to play platform because you see that that's what happened with Netflix. And Netflix has such a massive advantage over every other place. There's a video, by the way. Make sure to give it a like. And yeah, Xbox and Game Pass is failing. I don't think that it is. I do not think so. IGN gave Jedi Survivor a 9 out of 10 and Another Crab's Treasure a 7 out of 10. It got changed to 8 out of 10. Jedi Survivor, I'm gonna be honest, guys. The Crab game is better than Jedi Survivor. It's a better game. That's just the way it is, right? It's a better game. I played both games. It's a better game. It's way better. Yeah, and by the way, I don't even think it's close. I didn't even finish Jedi Survivor. Yeah, neither did I. It was boring. It was a lame game. It was cringe. Like, the story sucked. The gameplay was fucking annoying. Yeah, Microsoft will close Xbox division, to be honest. It's failing badly. Well, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to... well, they might close Xbox and then call it just Microsoft Gaming or something like that. But I think that what it is, fundamentally, will continue to live on. I'll be right back. I need to use the bathroom. A Jedi? Well, the thing is that, like, it's probably so easy to make a Star Wars game, and I don't know why nobody's able to do it. Like, like, that Eclipse game? I'm so mad. Like, just make that. Just make that and make it a Souls-like. I'll be happy. I'll be right back.